Welcome, global historical explorers, to a chilling medical secret hidden in the Andes. Modern civilization often labels ancient brain surgery as primitive butchery. Yet, astonishing archaeological finds reveal the Inca Empire achieved great survival rates. Over 80% of patients survived, a rate double that of the American Civil War. How did doctors cut through solid human bone without modern anesthesia or sterile rooms? We begin in a bright modern laboratory where researchers examine ancient skeletal remains. These are not ordinary skulls. They bear perfect holes, evidence of a procedure known as trepanation. According to historical records of the time, the Inca Empire was born through relentless warfare. To understand the origin of these mystery holes, we must travel back into an ancient battlefield. The primary weapons were truly devastating. Infantry warriors wielded heavy stone star clubs. Another brutal weapon was the woven sling, hurling smooth river stones at terrifying speeds. Blunt force trauma was the most common injury, leaving soldiers with severely fractured human skulls. Without intervention, the shattered bone fragments would press against the brain, causing fatal bleeding. The Inca medical system faced a grim choice: let the warriors die or open the human head. Thus, military necessity birthed a special class, the Kalawaya, who turned war into a clinic. Imagine being a wounded Inca soldier, your head throbbing with unimaginable agony. The surgeon approaches, his hands stained with cold, dried blood, carrying instruments made from stone and polished metal. If your skull was shattered in the ancient times, would you risk the blade of a stone knife to survive? Many observers assume this was total chaos, but archaeology tells a very different story. The Kalawaya doctors possessed a deep understanding of the human anatomy and battle wounds. Their primary tool was not a modern steel scalpel, but sharp volcanic glass known as obsidian. Obsidian blades are incredibly lethal. Their cutting edge is sharper than modern medical steel. Using these razor-sharp flakes, the healer would slowly scrape away the damaged bone surrounding the deep fracture. They did not drill recklessly. Instead, they carved grooves, lifting the broken skull fragment out of the wound. The most critical part of the surgery was removing the shattered bone without puncturing the membrane. This membrane protects the brain. Any puncture in it would guarantee a truly fatal infection. Modern neurosurgeons state that avoiding the membrane with manual stone tools is an absolute marvel. By relieving the pressure from the hematoma, the brain could safely swell without permanent damage. This raises a question. How did the patient endure the sheer agony of the stone blade in their skull? There were no synthetic anesthetics or morphine drips in the harsh, cold environments of the high Andes. The secret lay within the lush Amazon rainforests and the agricultural fields of the empire. Before the surgery began, the patient was given large amounts of chicha, a fermented corn beverage. This heavy alcohol consumption induced a state of deep intoxication, slowing down the heart rate. But alcohol alone could never erase the pain. The ultimate painkiller was the coca leaf. The patient chewed huge wads of coca mixed with ash, releasing natural alkaloids into their bloodstream. This potent mix acted as a local anesthetic, numbing the mouth and altering the brain's perception. To prevent biting off their tongues during the intense pain, patients clamped their jaws around thick wooden blocks. Could you endure hours of skull scraping armed with nothing but green leaves, fermented corn, and sheer willpower. Treating battle trauma was not the only reason they practiced this cranial drilling procedure. According to the chronicles, severe disorders like epilepsy were seen as demonic possessions. For a patient thrashing on the temple floor, priests believed an evil spirit was trapped in the head. Trepanation was performed as a spiritual act, creating a door to let the demons escape. Whether for trauma or healing, opening the skull was only half the battle. Surviving was the true test. Without antibiotics, bacterial infection should have claimed the lives of every single patient. Yet, the freezing temperatures and thin air of the Andes naturally stopped deadly bacteria. The healers also applied balsam sap sourced from the deep Amazon right onto the open wounds. These tree resins contained special healing properties, sealing the membrane to stop deadly infections. They used strong herbal tannins to wash the cuts, reducing swelling and accelerating the healing. The wound was then bound with clean woven cotton bandages, letting the patient rest in the stone temples. Fast forward to today, where anthropologists use scans to study these amazing ancient human skulls. What they found shattered the assumptions of history. The survival statistics are truly shocking. We track survival by examining the holes. If the bone shows smooth calcium regrowth, the patient lived. If the edges are sharp, the patient died during the procedure or succumbed to infection later. In the early days of the Inca Empire, the survival rate for this operation was 50%. By the late 15th century, their healing techniques evolved into a highly sophisticated science. At their peak, a stunning 80 to 90% of patients fully survived these complex skull surgeries. Many skulls show clear evidence of multiple healed holes, proving warriors returned to battle and survived. To put this triumph into perspective, we must look at the devastating American Civil War. Fought in the 19th century, 400 years later, Civil War medicine was a total nightmare. Despite having forged steel bone saws and early chloroform, surgeons faced horrific mortality rates. Any soldier who suffered a severe head wound in the Civil War was handed an absolute death sentence. Their survival rate for similar surgeries was less than 50%, mainly due to deadly gangrene. The surgeons often operated with dirty, unwashed hands, moving bacteria right into the open brain. Centuries earlier, the primitive Inca were performing better operations with volcanic glass. This contrast forces us to redefine our ideas of advanced civilization and primitive culture. The healers mastered the anatomy of the human head, pushing the boundaries of ancient survival. Yet, this medical mastery leads us to one of the most tragic paradoxes in human history. The doctors possessed the skill to repair shattered skulls and save their people from gruesome battlefield traumas. They conquered the limitations of the human body, operating in the freezing peaks of the mountains. But all their medicines and stone blades were totally useless against an invisible, microscopic foe. In the 16th century, a small group of Spanish conquistadors arrived on the shores seeking endless gold. They brought guns and steel, but their most devastating weapon was totally unintentional and unseen. The Europeans carried smallpox and measles, diseases for which the natives had zero immunity. These viral pathogens swept through the empire like wildfire, killing millions before the armies even clashed. The greatest surgeons of the ancient world could only watch as their mighty rulers succumbed to a fever. A civilization that could carve death from the skull was ultimately brought to its knees by the common cold. The healing temples were left, and the medical knowledge was buried beneath the ashes of the conquest. Today, these drilled skulls sit silently behind glass, whispering tales of a lost medical golden age. They stand as undeniable proof of human ingenuity and the desire to preserve precious life. We must remember the brilliant healers of the Andes who used nature to achieve miracles of surgery. Their legacy challenges arrogance, reminding us that wisdom exists far beyond modern hospitals. The story of Inca surgery is a perfect blend of brutal warfare and compassionate healing. Every hole carved into these ancient bones is a permanent monument to a brave and proud society. Even as their empire faded into time, their medical achievements echo through the endless centuries. As modern medicine advances, we look back in awe at the hands that wielded those black volcanic blades. We must reflect on the fragile nature of civilization, where intellect meets ruthless historical fate. The ultimate lesson of the Inca Empire is clear, proving that even great science cannot stop destiny. The Incas conquered the skull, but collapsed under germs brought by a tiny band of Spanish invaders. Was this collapse an inevitable fate, or just absolute dark luck? Tell us in the comments below. If you are amazed by this ancient mystery, please like, share, and subscribe for more epic revelations.